Welcome, John De Lancie. Thank you. All right, let's have questions. Okay? Let's have questions. Who has some questions right off the bat? Yes.
Okay, so being on a soap opera and being a Star Trek personality, what has been your weirdest fan interaction?
Being on a soap opera and being on on Star Trek, what has been my strangest interaction? Probably the most strange one is that I was walking down the street in New York, and the streets are short. The blocks are short, and you have to have your radar up. And I saw a guy. I stepped onto the block, and I saw a guy step onto the block coming in this direction, and he was somebody that you had to keep your eye on. He was a sort of a really big, scary guy, and it was night. So I saw him like that, and I sort of began to move in this direction like this as I continued walking, and he moved in the direction like this, and we're getting closer, and then I moved like this, a little bit like this, and he moved this way, and I'm like, oh my God, I think that I'm going to get mugged. And he comes up, and now my legs are bent, and I am ready for something. And he comes up right to me like this. I mean, breaking that, personal wall. And he goes, "Are you Q?" And I went, "Yeah." "Can you bring people back from the dead?" And I said, "Well, only people I like." And he went, "Cool." And then he walked on. That completely got me. Yeah. All right, next question. Come on. Yes.
It was so great seeing you. Is this one? Oh, there it is. It was really great seeing or hearing you on Lower Decks as Q for the first time in a while. What was it like returning to the character in a new medium for the first time in a long time?
Well, the thing with the deal with voiceovers is that you don't spend very much time doing it. You might spend an hour or two. So it's, I'm going to take that question and turn it around. Politicians are doing that all the time right now. And I'm going to say, what was it like to have come back to the character of Q in Picard? That was a very different thing. When they asked me to come back for Picard, and I went in to talk with them, there were two questions I had. One was sort of a silly question. I said, "You're not putting me back in those tights," because that would be very unseemly. And they said no. And I said, now the serious question is, are we creating or are we recreating? Recreating can be a real a pitfall. It could be really bad. And the idea that I would be, 35 or whatever it is, I don't know how many years later, trying to do that kind of mantics, the character, it wouldn't work out. And they said, no, we're creating, we're taking it from now forward. And I went, great. And that gave me the relaxation and also the ability to be able to think of it in a way that I thought would be successful. So, and that was great. Next question. Yes.
Hi. I actually want to know about going way back when you first decided how you would play the role. Did you have any other things you experimented with before you landed on the sort of swarmy, like, way you play in the series?
So did I have any other, how did I approach the role? Well, I was actually very fortunate. I tend to play things that are sort of close to the best already. I come from, my feeling about acting is this. is that we have almost all of the characters that exist in the world inside us already. It's just that we don't touch most of them very often, or if ever. So I was very fortunate in that I was playing already, when I got the job, I was playing a character who was based on the life of Raoul Amundsen. Raoul Amundsen was the explorer, or Norwegian explorer who got to the South Pole first. I loved Amundsen. I had already begun to play him in rehearsals. I loved, there was something about him that was, in the world of Arctic exploring, there are two places, there are two divisions. One is the romantic idea, and then there was have you ever heard the expression, it's time to eat the dogs? Raoul Amundsen, when he made the last trek to the center of Antarctica, on the way back, he ate the dogs because that he was bringing that sort of professional hard ass. So I had that. And then there's another part of me which kind of goes with almost everything that I do. My humor tends to be of an undercut level. I undercut. And I was playing I was playing a god, but I thought, yeah, but you know, after a while, after you do this enough, I mean, that's sort of as far as you can go. How about if I play a god with clay feet? How about if I play an omnipotent being who's too stupid to know it? So that gives me the fracturing that I need, and the opportunity to play one thing very strong in this direction, and then, you know, and then trip on the way walking down. So that's how I approach it. Okay, next. Somebody in the back. They all look at each other. Yes, go ahead, yeah.
What was one of your favorite parts in the original Next Generation?
What was one of my favorite parts?
Playing Q.
You mean
One of your favorite
like the character of Q?
More like, what was your favorite episode, or what was your favorite?
Oh, favorite episodes. I have been asked that before, and you know, it's going to come as a surprise to you, and that is that you, I don't know you particularly, but you in general, you, the audience, will have seen these episodes often many, many times. Most of us have never actually even seen an episode from start to finish. We've read the material, we've learned it, we go and shoot it, we then go and see ourselves in the ADR room when they're trying to, you know, maybe change those, and we're checking to make sure, yes, okay, that worked, oh boy, that didn't work, can't do that again, and stuff like that, and that's sort of the end. So there are things that I remember of going, oh, this thing, I need a lot of energy here, and I need for it to be more of amusing. Over here, I need this or that, and what have you. And that's how it is. It's very fragmented in my head. Okay, next question. Yes.
Tell us about working with Leonard Nimoy, recreating all those old broadcasts.
Oh, I really enjoyed working with Leonard Nimoy. I have been directing at LA Theater Works. I have been directing a lot of shows at LA Theater Works. And the management there said, gee, we're having some problems with, you know, audiences. How is it that we could get more audiences? I went science fiction. science fiction. Science fiction. Do science fiction. Well, and so after a little bit of a tug and a pull, they said, okay, how about if we did War of the Worlds? Great. They ended up having a line around the block. Everybody wanted to see it. And so Leonard was the headliner for War of the Worlds. And then I brought in some of from the cast from Star Trek. And it was at the end of that, and I already had in my head that I wanted to do Alien Voices was a company that Leonard and I had, where we did audio adaptations of classic science fiction. Okay? So I said to Leonard at the end of that experience, I said, did you enjoy yourself? He said, I had a great time. I said, well, Leonard, I have this idea. He said, why don't you come to my office and we'll talk about it. So that's how it started. And as a matter of fact, I was telling some of them who were here earlier, I had a voiceover yesterday, and it was with the same group that had the same engineer and the same producer that had done all of the Alien Voices things. And so we went out after, and we talked about it. We talked about some of the fun things, which was Leonard would come in and he'd immediately dive into the bowl. This is in the recording studio. He would immediately dive into the bowl of chocolate. Chocolate is one of the worst things that you can eat when you are doing any sort of voiceover work. It all sounds like this. It's just a smacking sound that you kind of go, no, I don't want that. So in any case, Leonard would go in and he started, and we all go, whoa, what is that? And hey Leonard, why don't you have a glass of water here? Take another glass of water like that. And then at the end of the first session, somebody said to me, you've got to talk to Leonard. You've got to talk to Leonard. And I said, no, I don't have to talk to Leonard. We just pull the bowl of chocolate away, and then we won't have that problem. But the next day when I came in, John Cheminsky, who was the engineer, said, we don't have to worry. I've created a new algorithm, a filter, and I'm calling it the Leonard filter. So we had a great time. We worked very, very closely with each other. I mean, like 3 or 4 phone calls a day, and then the project itself, and writing the shows, and directing, and then all the post work that had to be done in the studios. For about 4 years, until we looked at each other one day, we could feel tension was rising. We had never had any real tension between us, but tension was rising. And that is that Simon & Schuster, we started with Simon & Schuster, and Simon & Schuster, they did not have a division that would be like podcasts now, or old-time radio, which they kept on calling us. They only had a division that was called a book, and then the audio of the book. So they would put all of their money in the advertising of, the 7 habits of successful people. And so that would be like a huge ship that was going, that would sell 100,000 units that year, or 150,000 units that year. And then behind it would go this little audio of, 7 habits of successful people. And we kept on saying to them, this doesn't fit us. It just doesn't fit us. And I understand that the first year you get 100,000 units, but the next year you get 50,000 units, and the year after that it's 35, and it's off your radar. We are evergreen. Time Machine, Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Invisible Man, First Man in the Moon, The Lost World. These are evergreen titles, and they will last forever. So getting 35,000 every year, but every year will be a big deal. They didn't see it that way, and then we spent maybe I don't know, a year of that 4-year period selling, and we're not salesmen. I mean, good salesmen, of which it's hard to find, are good because they're good at what they do. We were good at writing and acting in and producing shows. We're not salesmen, and we just went, you know what? It's done. It's over. We never did this to make money anyway. It's just finished. So that's the arc of Alien Forces. Okay, next question. Yes.
Can you elaborate on your personal feelings about science fiction and what it means to you? Because you were mentioning that you wanted your theater to do science fiction. So, what does science fiction mean to you?
Science fiction. I'm going to make this sort of a long story so that you can hear more about who I am, and it gives you an opportunity to piece things together. I was a kid who had tremendous difficulties reading. So I had flunked out of one school, I then flunked a grade, and so I didn't learn how to read until I was about 11 years old. And the first book I read was Jules Verne's A Mysterious Island, or The Mysterious Island. I was so impressed by that book. Maybe because, and I still read every word and it's rather slow and what have you, but I began to love the guys in that book. And I know, for those of you who don't know the story very quickly, it's a bunch of guys in a prisoner of war camp in the South. They escape in a balloon, in an observation balloon. This is right during the Civil War. A dog jumps up in the, I mean, this is all boys' literature. A dog jumps up in the balloon with them, and there's a young kid there who's 15, oh my God. And the balloon gets taken out to sea in the Pacific. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, and they land on the mysterious island. Okay. What made me so attached to these people is that they were not whiners. They were like, oh my God, why me? This is terrible. They were not religious in any way whatsoever, so it wasn't, God help us. They were people who right off the bat knew things. They just knew things. They knew things that I didn't know as an 11, 12-year-old. They could look at, one of them could look at a bank of dirt, and say, there's iron ore in there. We'll be able to extract that, and we'll be able to make tools. I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I want to be like that person. I want to be like that person. The notion that science and industry, and the way in which I took industry to mean, I don't mean industry in terms of factories. Science and industry, science and working hard will make a better world. And that to me is the essence of science fiction as it was presented by Jules Verne, as it was presented by H.G. Wells, and presented by so many other people. I wish that I wish I had read a lot more science fiction, but it's an effort for me to read. It still is, and I just didn't. It came to me as a complete surprise when somebody told me a couple of years after Star Trek, well, you have created one of the major characters in science fiction. What? Really? I have never gravitated towards science fiction that is of a didactic nature, that is of a cautionary tale nature. am much more of a survivalist sort of science fiction. That's why I enjoy really good zombie movies. And so science, Star Trek is not quite my cup of tea. Alien over there, I was like, oh, okay. And I'm not learning anything other than don't go down that corridor. But in any case, those are some of my elements with science fiction. Okay, another question. Yes?
I have a question about your relationship to costuming. Whether it's yourself.
My relationship to what?
Costuming.
Yeah.
Whether it's on television or on stage, whether it's for you or for a production. But before that, what's the best outfit you've ever got to wear in production? Being in soap operas in the 80s?
Oh, yeah, no, not soap operas in the 80s, although I was in drag a lot for some of those. I went to drama school in New York, and Jane Greenwood, who was a very, very famous, still is, a very famous designer, costume designer, would take us down to where they did all the bills and what have you. And I always found it interesting. For Star Trek, clearly that Judge's robe is a classic thing. But for Picard, some of the outfits in Picard were spectacular. Christina, her I don't remember her last name. I'm sorry. Her outfits, her inventions were wonderful. Her designs. For those of you who don't know, I mean, what happens is that you go to the studio and you are shown a picture of what they have in mind. And the good designers are asking you what your opinion is or what have you, but it's really your job to come up to their emotions because they're the ones who've done all this work on it. And then you will get a master tailor who will come in and create kind of a mock-up, which just gives them something to work with. Of course, measurements have been taken to the nth degree beforehand. And then you come in 2 or 3 times as the costume begins to build. So I love that stuff. I mean, I think that's really, really creative. Yeah. Have I answered your question? Okay. All right, next. Yes.
One more microphone. So I'll have to yell. Thank you.
Your characters on Breaking Bad and on Star Trek were so wildly different. As an actor, how do you approach characters that wildly different?
Well, in this case, there are 2 characters, and the lady over here asked me about, the acting. You asked me about the character in Star Trek. I mean, the character of Q is pretty out there. It's constantly it's in this direction. The one in Breaking Bad, it's in this direction. So you have to make that basic assumption, those big line assumptions. Then, as I said to you before, there's a part of you that embodies just about everything that humans, emotions and stuff like that. You might not have kids, but you can think about what it would be like if your mom and dad died, or if your cat died, or what have you. Well, in this case, it was not difficult in a way for me to transpose the idea that the character I'm playing, whose daughter dies in an overdose, it could be my son, one of my sons. So you just have to work in that area. You just have to work in that area. The good news is for work like that, you need to be in an environment where things are rather relaxed, or put it this way, they're not tense. The old style, which I came in on, of shooting a television show, and certainly in 1987, Star Trek was still in that zone, was you came in, you had, all right, action, you did it once. Every actor I know is almost 90% of their concentration is on whether they got the words right. Then you do it a second time, and if they're asking for a third time, you begin going, "Ooh, are they not happy with what I'm doing?" Okay? Well, in Breaking Bad, third, fourth, fifth, and I'm now nervous. I'm now going, they don't like what I'm doing. Until I realized, no. Look at that. They're all in their video village, which is where the cameras are, where the monitors are, and they, the writer, the director, the producer, the line producer, what have you, they're there, the DP, they're there, and they're doing their work. Oh my gosh, we're all doing work. Well, that opened it up to being able to be very relaxed. If you want to see some fabulous acting, watch Ridley. Watch the new version of Ripley, which is, I think, still on. Those actors are so relaxed, and the camera is doing such interesting stuff. You do not get that unless it's coming from on high, where the director is going, this is what we're working on today. Don't worry about how much time it takes. We're going to get it. And so that's when we get, I think, really great work. Okay, another question. Yes?
So I want to ask, one of your most important films, the new Bond.
The what?
The new Bond, the Get Smart movie. So obviously it was fairly early, and kind of visibly uncomfortable in watching you. And it's a film where there's a lot of shtick, and I don't see you as a shtick guy. How do you approach something where you're like, okay, I need this part, but this isn't really what I want.
Well, actually, my wife is just happy because I do actually a lot of shit. No, that was a very good. Actually, I learned a big lesson in that film. Don Adams made a classic mistake. He was trying to recreate rather than to create. And so he was so uncomfortable. It was so difficult to be with him and to work with him. And he Kenny Mars, brilliant actor, always attacking. Don Adams, always attacking, you kind of go. So that's where I learned. I would. There's Kenny Mars is here, and Don Adams, and then there's me, and I'm watching him, and I'm going, oh my God, you are in trouble. And because he was trying to recreate his husband. And why did I take the job? I don't know. I needed the job. Okay, next.
I'm just looking to who to give the microphone to.
Surely somebody has a question.
If it's okay if I ask a second question, sorry. So since this is a prop auction and we're all here to see props, I have to ask, is there anything that you've ever seen, either in Star Trek or one of the other projects that you've done, that just amazed you, either set-wise or prop-wise, or something that you wish you'd taken home with you? Any of those kind of things?
The props that were in the first scene that I did for Picard, where you come into a room and there are skulls and all sorts of things, it was that the set decoration for that was fantastic, and I don't see them here. The one that I keep on going every time I go past it is the alien. Ooh, I would like that. All right, next, another question. Yes.
Just recreating instead of creating twice. Is there a way to recreate in an interesting way?
In what?
In an interesting way or in a good way?
Is there a way to create?
Recreate
in a good way?
You said recreate.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the problem is that there are so many pitfalls in recreating because you've already gone through that. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, most of us will try to stay away from that as much as you can. I'm thinking sometimes with cooking. You had a wonderful meal. That you can maybe control, but can you control having a wonderful dinner party a second time with the same people? Often not. There are things that just don't fall into place. So I don't have a technique for recreating. Now understand, on stage you have to recreate every night. But you are not trying, you're not looking behind you, you're looking ahead of you to find new things, to find, you go, oh my God, her hair is different tonight, or there's a smile that's just come out and I can use that, so there are all sorts of things that keep you either mostly present and on a track that has to do with discovery. Okay, next. Yes.
So speaking about creating versus recreating, is there something you're looking forward to creating?
Could you hear that?
Some of it. Say it again.
So you're talking about creating versus recreating. Is there something you're looking forward to creating here in the future that we can look forward to seeing?
Well, the only thing which the only thing that means something to me right now, things could be different. I mean, I've done, I took a project that I had done a number of times, which was Peer Gynt with symphony orchestras, and I reimagined it. Okay, so, and I did. So, maybe somebody will ask me to do it again. It isn't like I have an orchestra, in the backyard that I can go to. I wrote a show about the Dover Intelligent Design Trial. This is all very in the weeds, perhaps, but in 2005, evangelicals took over the school board in Dover, Pennsylvania, and threw out the science books and brought down creationism. I've written a show about it, and I want everybody to see it. I am moving towards recording that show, but in between now and then, I have to do 3 of these around the country with a whole new cast each and every time, You know, many of them not necessarily professionals. You know, for whatever event is going to be things. So that is a good example of having to go, oh no, it can't be like it was the last time, which I'm going to have to accept that this is the person who's playing this role, and we're going to make it better from this place on. So, yeah. Okay, another question. Yes.
Yes, Star Trek question. What was Star Trek question? What was your most difficult scene you had to film in the series?
The most difficult scene to be filmed in the series. Difficult in what respect?
Challenging.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I mean, because I forgot my lines.
I wouldn't have seen it in the actual series, but it would have been interesting. Challenges, which means that you get into it. Now, I didn't expect this, or if there was a sense of humor that you can adapt that you didn't see it coming.
You know, for me, I can't really say that there was anything that I was concerned about because of an acting challenge, and it doesn't, don't get me wrong, it isn't because I'm, you know, such a good actor that nothing's going to be challenging. It's just that most of the time, for me, my biggest challenge was having pages of dialogue that had to be spit out, because I chose to do it this way, at pretty, with a lot of energy, and to get up to a sense of careening. There's a feeling that you get when you're really, when it's working, and that is that it's the feeling that I remember as a kid running down a hill when you were running so fast that you're not quite in control. I mean, you are in control, but right on the edge. Those are the ones, and for Star Trek, as opposed to Picard, I couldn't finish it. All of us actors talk about this to this day. You could finish, you know, a monologue that ran for a couple of pages, and then everybody would immediately turn to Cosmo, who was the script supervisor, to hear whether Cosmo would say, well, he said was not, and it's written wasn't. All right, well, we'll have to do it again. You've got to be kidding. So that would drive us into our heads. And so that was, for me at least, it was always a technical challenge and not kind of an acting challenge in that, you know, am I feeling it or something like that. It was just technically stressful.
What about, speaking of Cosmo, did you ever ad-lib? Ad-lib some of your lines and actually that part of the series?
Did we have to what?
Ad-lib.
Oh no, I mean this story should have told you. Absolutely no ad-lib. Absolutely no ad-libbing. So the deal is that I had to play it so that it looked like some of it was ad-lib. I had to play it, I had to give that sense. I mean, there was one ad-lib that it was a Robin Hood episode, and my henchman comes in. I mean, it was one of these scenes, it was a shitty scene. My henchman comes in, and it is and he says to me, tomorrow will be a good day. There will be a wedding and an execution. And he turns around and he leaves. And then the camera just dumps on your face, which I always hated those, you know, it just dumps on, you're supposed to kind of like, you know, I always think, what am I supposed to do with it? So I turn to the camera, so he says, tomorrow will be a good day. There will be a wedding and an execution. And I turned to the camera and I went, but I thought all weddings were executions. Well, it got me in trouble. So I had come from a lot of acting. And so, but there, no. So you just have to make it look like it's, yeah. Okay, next. Are you an actor? Not really.
I was wondering if there's a character in film or literature that you most closely resonates with you personally.
Say it again.
If there's a character in film or literature that most closely resonates with you.
Is there?
You know,
Oh, I was just going to translate for you.
I have friends who would very much like to play certain roles that they didn't get to play. I've never been somebody like that. I just had to do, or at least prepared to do, Henry IV, Shakespeare's Henry IV. And it's the part of the father who talks to his son in the last few moments of his life. And I would love to play that. I would have, I don't think I will. I would have loved to play that. There's, you know, it's a father and son. They have never gotten along. The father is dying. He is asleep, and the son comes in, sees the crown. And assuming his father is in fact dead, lifts the crown and speaks to the crown saying, "You have killed my father. This gold is not gold. It has killed." And the father wakes up and sees the son with the crown on his head, and of course assumes that the son has come in and is taken the crown before he's even done. So it's, you know, it's perfect Shakespearean song. I mean, the highest level of conflict. And then the father just goes hopeless. And it's wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Okay, yes.
Can you give us some material for right now then?
No. Yeah. All right, next. Right behind you.
Some friends gave me this years ago.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Leonard Dean was the one I needed. He only works with Leonard, and do you have any interesting stories from the play?
Do I have any stories? This lady here has this. What's that?
Did she ask already?
I couldn't hear.
I can do it.
She asked for it.
Did he ask?
Yeah. Did you tell all the stories working with
Oh, no. You know, I have gone on to do Lost World many times. Yeah. I did for LA Theater Works. After finding out that sci-fi, in fact, was profitable, they asked me. They said, "We want to go out on tour. What would you suggest?" And I said, "Well, why don't you do? Why don't we do War of the Worlds? But then, and I'll direct it in a very sort of sepia, depression sort of way. It'll be lit that way. Everybody will be in gray suits, and and then after Lost World, and I had written Lost World with a friend named Matt Singleton, and the idea was it was sort of a spoof on those science fiction movies where there's always the girl with the ripped, shirt running through the jungle, in high heels with the dinosaur right behind her, and she trips. So we created a Lost World that was that, and that went out on tour, and it was supposed to go out for a month, and it went out for 6 months. It was that popular. So we have a Star Trek cruise that we were all invited to take, and I did it on the cruise. And so I've done Lost World now a number of times. That was the first time we did it. Yeah. Yes.
You may not care for this question, but in your experience on Star Trek, was there any actor that you just couldn't stand?
A couple of them. But I'm not going to tell you who. Yes.
Silly question. Who did you have more fun messing with, Picard or Janeway?
Kate and I have been friends for many, many years. So, there's more of a relationship there and what have you. But the way in which the two shows were written, the relationship between Picard and Q was always a male A-type, who's on top, adversarial. And so in your palette of colors, you have them all. The problem with Kate was that they were so concerned that Kate would somehow play that she was infatuated with Q, and that would diminish her power, that they would come to her a couple of times a day and say, don't make sure, like that, for which the two of us would go, all they're doing is taking a very major color off of our easel here, or whatever it's called. Because we could do so much with that. And the audience would be like, oh my God. Pull back. We could do so much with that, but people wouldn't. And I thought that was short-sighted and not smart in a way. It didn't allow two skilled actors to create kind of a frisson that was going on, and it would have been more. It would have been more. So now to answer which was the easier ones or which ones were, it was Picard and I, because they were full out. Here you were always kind of putting the brakes on. Yes, more questions. You have 3 minutes.
Dallas Wales.
So much pressure, jeez. So you were talking about the dialogue being so precise, but your character is so singular, and like, how much control do they have over what Q is going to be?
Well, in that respect, you can say I love you, and it can give the audience the creeps. You can say I love you, and the audience goes, he's going to kill her. So in that respect, you could bend the line as much as you wanted, and that's what I did. So I was trying to bend the line. And also, there's something else that goes on, especially in a television environment. you are in your home. So you have this set in front of you, and you're watching. And you know, on stage, this is what happens in everything. And think about it when you see people on stage, or when you see somebody new who comes into an environment or comes into a dinner party or anything. There is a trajectory that takes place. So I'm going to go back to the image of the stage. You're looking at the stage, and there's a new character that comes in. You know, it's the family, and there's the pretty miss, and there's the grandparents, and then you have, the handsome young man comes in. Well, immediately, you start putting together something. Well, he's going to go with her, and then she's going to do this, and the father's going to do it. And you create expectations. And those expectations are on a trajectory that kind of goes like this. Now I'm going to take you back to and that trajectory is also written. So there is a written trajectory. I'm going to go back to the television, and you're sitting there watching television. In comes a character. You're going to do the same thing. Oh, this character is going to do this, and then that's going to happen that way. And you're projecting. And now, I'm really hungry. So I'm going to run and get a sandwich. And then when you come back, the character that was here is now here. But you know what? They are fulfilling the trajectory. I'm going to break that trajectory. I'm going to break that trajectory. What I don't want is people going and going, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, I'm going to go to the bathroom. No, you're not going to go to the bathroom. So you can break that trajectory by doing this through. So you think it's going to go in this direction, but it actually goes in that direction. You think he's really nice, but he's been kind of an asshole. So you can do that. You can do that by, I'm speaking to some of you who are actors. You can do that by doing your homework. By doing your homework. That's really important. And then you load everything up into RAM. Okay? So you have at your disposal 4 or 5 different ways that you could go. You could do this, you could do that, you could do that. And then you put all of your attention outside of yourself, but you need to really know technically what you're doing. And then you play. And if the person has, who is going, well, it's really nice to see you, you kind of go, smirk on your face. I don't like that. Well, that's not the way it's written. The lines are coming out, I love you. But you're just playing in this other zone. So everything looks kind of like, where's it going? And that keeps the person who goes, I really need to go to the bathroom. That's sort of how you do it. Okay, another question?
I feel like I probably would be able to this based on.
What's that?
I feel like I probably already know the answer to this question based on the contents of this today. Thank you for this. But my question is, you're clearly a very diverse actor, and you've done a lot in your life, and a lot of interests, and all of that. How do you navigate the fact that you are best known for one role, one very famous role, that it really reduces who you are as an actor?
Right. A very good question. I mean, the thing is this, is that the alternative to being known is not so great. And it has given me an enormous amount of opportunities, not the least of which being here. You know, I had a very viable concert career that meant a great deal to me. I grew up, my father was with the Philadelphia Orchestra, classical music. I grew up in that world and what have you. They were looking for a narrator. Well, I'm very good at that. And because of Star Trek, I just got asked, and then that allowed me to go through all of the narrations that have been written, then to write new narrations, then to write new shows, then to have a series at Disney Hall, then to be the one who did the children's concerts for 4 years, all because of that. So it is a little strange that it's the tomato that's stuck on the wall, but it's not the one. It's not the things that I go to in my own mind as being the most difficult or what have you. It's certainly the most rewarding on a fame and fortune. All right, we can do more. Any more questions?
This hardly seems like a good last question, but I was curious about your time on Days of Our Lives, because you're such an actor. Is it difficult to do a soap opera as compared to like a series and everything?
I had the best time in the world acting on Days of Our Lives. I was brought in to do a week, and they said, "You're coming back." And I said, "I don't know how I'm going to be coming back. I'm a kidnapper, a murderer, a pedophile," and Al Raven was the head of the show. We went, "Oh, John, it's a soap opera." They allowed me to be actually closer to who I really am. So most of the stuff in which I did was spoofing. I almost got thrown out of Juilliard for spoofing. Hamlet as a comedian is not quite what they had. And then they paired me up with Arlene Sorkin, who was a wonderful, who was in fact a real comedian. So I could keep the scenes going as an actor would, and then she could come in with a lot of stuff like, one-liners that were always wonderful. We got to be very naughty, very naughty. Brandon Tartikoff, who was the head of NBC, brought us up to his office. He said, "You guys are killing me. You're killing me. You're very funny, but you are killing me." De Lancie, when you first came on, we had one censor who came once a week. Now with the two of you, we have 2 censors on all of your scenes, and you are still killing me. So we just had a great time. But I realized that I didn't want to become, if you just want to act, soap operas are great. You're sort of in you're learning lines, you're acting where you're making actually a decent living. But I didn't want to stay there, and my wife and I decided that we needed to make a grub steak. You know what a grub steak is? A grub steak is a term that was used during the gold rush, and that is that you had to have a certain cache of food, and they would not. The Canadian Mounties would not let you into the country. Up in Alaska, in Seward, Alaska. They would not let you up into the country unless you had this grub steak. So I figured we needed this grub steak, and this growth state. We need to save our money, and after 2.5, 3 years, we had saved all the money that we needed to. And then I left. But that 3 years was great. We just left. For me, it was a little bit like high school. My idea of high school was to make today funnier than yesterday, more fun than yesterday. And people who have been on soap operas, people who knew of Arlene and I on that soap opera, they said, what you guys did, what you guys got away with was unheard of. And I think part of the reason is that Al Raven was this little guy from Chicago. He was the guy who ran the show. He had been clearly the class clown, and he saw in me to start with, and then Arlene and I, he felt simpatico, and he just, the only thing he would say to us before we went into the shoot, he'd go, faster and funnier. And those days completely don't exist anymore. And somebody asked about going back, about recreating. I've been asked twice now, but over the years, I left in 1981, and they still talk about those days. They said, we'd like you to come back. And I toyed with the idea, but again, you just can't go back. You can't go back. And so I still have wonderful memories, and they're not spoiled with the way that it operates. All right, that's it. One last one. Yes.
You're living in really interesting times. Do you feel comfortable sharing your views on secularism?
Do I feel? Yes, I think that we are living in interesting times, I wish one of the 10 commandments, 4 of the 10 commandments have to do with I'm the one. I'm the one. Nobody else but me. Kind of go, oh, okay. And then it's the nice stuff, do unto others, whatever. But 4 of them are, it's me. And I always found that interesting. 4 out of 10, that's a lot of I wish one of the 10 commandments was mind your own business. and what's his name? Paul's just said, mind your own business. I am so tired of listening to all this stuff, which, excuse me, for some of us, we kind of don't, we're not there. We just don't, we don't, hold these, quote, beliefs. But when you have these beliefs and you go out into the public square, then it's very different, and especially where I am most interested in is education. You cannot, it's so difficult as it is for anybody to make their way in life, and to load them up with a lot of nonsense, especially just in terms of how science works, is really a disservice. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you, John.